afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much for joining us today. We wanted to just do a quick kind of roundup of key takeaways and kind of vision at which all the different hosts from the FuturePrint Virtual Summit had of the key issues that came up across the October event. So I wanted to say just thank you for joining us and introduce everyone. We have Karis Copp, who many of you will know. We have Brendan Perring, we have Roland Biemans, and we have Pat McGrew, who all played a significant part in the previous FuturePrint Virtual Summit and can just give us a bit of insight into what they thought was good. Hi to everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to quickly just share with you some slides just to give you a little bit of intro in terms of the kind of numbers on this particular event. As everyone knows, lots of content partners, lots of sessions. We had 120 speakers, we had 75 sessions, and we had over 3,700 delegates registering from a June base of about 1,500. So really good numbers in terms of interest. 85 countries, lots of interest from UK and US. Top countries, of course, UK, US, Netherlands, Germany, Finland, France, Belgium, Japan, Italy. You can see them there. 5 days, loads of content. Also tried to bring things together with Remo sessions in the middle of the day. The community we actually have grew from 400 up to now 8,000. So really huge community that are kind of work building around this whole summit idea. So really pleased on that front. Some very, very popular talks. Lander obviously was a big one. Zar was a good one. You know, there were a lot of people coming into these sessions, and obviously people also revisit later in the day and can watch the replays. So what's great about this is that, you know, you don't have to watch it in a linear fashion. People enjoy it later and can come back and dip in and just kind of select what they were looking for. Continued diversity in terms of the audience, 54% male, 45% female, which reflects similar numbers to the previous one we did in June. And again, the demographic on young people, lots more young people attending, which is really good news around these events. We think from our own research that people are still seeing these summits to be useful and generally to find the insight helpful. And I just wanted to find out a bit more with everyone today to see whether you guys also continue to enjoy doing this and the insight that you get from it. So really what I wanted to just find out, let's just going around the Zoom call. Karis, what were your kind of overall feelings of around this event?
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, I might be biased because I was lucky enough to host the Young Guns in Print Day, but you know, seeing that number there of how many young people attended was fantastic. We've all spoken before that perhaps the younger people tend to be more junior, maybe don't have as much access to the education that you see at a trade show. They might not get to go and see the trade shows. So to have that kind of democratization of that information is amazing. And one of the takeaways from that day, I think definitely is the issue of retention. You know, we talk about attracting young people to the industry, but if we really want to focus on retention, we need to think about making sure that the workplaces are places that talented young people want to stay in. You know, they really care much more than perhaps previous generations about that work-life balance, being comfortable somewhere, you know, a company culture, working for somewhere with values, somewhere authentic. So I really think we need to think, yes, about attracting, but also, you know, how do we change our businesses in terms of make sure we're retaining as well. So I just thought that was.
And you had quite a few sessions where you had young entrepreneurs in.
Yes.
So did they give you any kind of tip in terms of the, you know, coming through the ranks and why they found themselves in the position of running a business?
I think, you know, one of the things definitely was that you know, and I don't want to generalize, but they had no sort of frame of reference when you're a young entrepreneur. You just kind of go for it. You know, I think there was that, you know, trial and error kind of thing. You know, you need to kind of take those risks. And yeah, I think they all have that, you know, entrepreneurial spirit that you need, but they also weren't, you know, beholden to any kind of way of doing it, because, you know, when you don't know, you just sort of do what you go with your instinct kind of thing, and you kind of learn on the job all the things that you might need to run a business apart from that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and a good idea. So definitely just that, you know, that not having that fear, as I know Pat was talking about in her presentation as well. You know, don't give in to the fear of it, just go for it. So that was really, really inspiring to see.
And you had some, you know, some good young people there, didn't you? Richard Boone from Webmart, Stuart McLaren, you know, some really good, strong entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And Karis, one of the things that caught me on all of those young gun sessions is I heard a much younger version of me come out of their mouths quite a bit. Because, you know, from having, you know, built a software company in my early 30s and making every mistake you could make, you know, having the whole thing based on how much open credit we had on credit cards, trying to figure out, you know, how to buy the things we needed to keep ourselves going. And I heard so much of that come through in the conversations. But what it said to me is that the function of being a young entrepreneur has not fundamentally changed in the last 40 years, but the desire to do it is still in the industry.
Yeah, that's very valid. Brendan, any thoughts, particularly in terms of what you were seeing at the event?
Yeah, sure, thanks. I think the first thing that really came out was that there's been, looking at the commercial print day that I was focused on and bringing that to the conference, but also it seems to be fanning out through other industries, is that there's a real trend for the SME print business that was very much focused on product delivery, having equipment in-house to produce most things themselves and only subbing out very large jobs to trade printers. COVID has very much accelerated this trend, but there is a lot more SME print businesses now divesting themselves of equipment and technology in-house and really becoming marketing service providers, design agencies, and essentially print fulfillment, print managers, not actual printers themselves. So that's interesting.
Yep.
The other key thing that came up across many sessions, actually across the days, is the power of consultative selling and relationship building, and really moving away from a print factory model where someone else is doing the selling, the agency or the procurement manager or whatever, and that you are just a factory to produce these things is stopping, and it's really having to change quickly because that model doesn't work anymore. The factory now has to be as consultative with their customer as the biggest agency. So I think that's another key trend that came out.
Is there a sense, sorry on that, is there a sense that people who are in the print industry are, you know, entrepreneurs, as we talked about with Karis, are they recruiting the right kind of people for that role? Because exactly as you said, you know, they're needing a different skill set.
What's really interesting is that most of them, especially SME print businesses, simply don't have the capacity to hire that type of skill and pay them to their market level. Yep. So their strategy really is to take their creatives in-house, who literally they're designers or the people that would be working creatively within the business, and using them as the capital to try and make those sessions happen. We have one key IPA member, Sure, who has done that very effectively. They actually just moved to have their design team in pitches and wanted to see what would happen when that happened. And suddenly they started realizing they were winning a lot more pitches because the design team was bringing creative, fresh ideas to the table, and were able to then technically explain how that was possible instead of just focusing on price. So actually they're trying to leverage internal talent that exists to do that better rather than bringing people from the outside. Yeah,
makes sense. Pat, what did you particularly see?
I fell in love with the curation. I thought of it in three ways. I thought about all the interactivity that was available. While I know that some people would prefer every session to be live all the time, I think when you're doing such a large event, There's safety in recording, but having everyone available for live interaction, I thought made a huge difference. And I know I found it really valuable. I always love live panels, but I thought for this event, I just love the opportunity for interaction. I was blown away by the curation. I know that it's never easy to put together, the right combination of speakers and topics and trying to figure out who's going to be interested in what. But for me, and I've been around a while, I learned something every day. And it was in areas that I was curious about, but would have not normally had access to. I wanted to understand more about the technology behind decor, and I wanted to understand more about textile and how textile people think about the textile side of the business. And all that was available to me, as well as having access to some really great thought around the whole sales process and how other people look at the sales process. The other thing that caught me was that woven through everything was an understanding that there are more applications available to a printing organization than they might currently be thinking about. And so one of my takeaways was a new set of talk tracks on things that I can help people with, things that they maybe haven't thought about, some products in the product mix that they might not have thought about that they can do with equipment that they already have or that they can partner to have access to. And so, from a success standpoint, those were really important to me. At the end of the day, all of these virtual events are tough because you're asking people to, pay attention to you during their business day or come back and look at a recording and try to remember all the things that they wanted to know. This was laid out so that it was actually not that hard to figure out what was cool and what I needed to know and to get access to it. And the timing of the presentations was such that none of them was taking so much time that I couldn't also weave it into the rest of my business day. So I thought that from a layout perspective, it was really good.
Really good.
I was excited by it.
Did you, the panel, what did you think about sort of, having Lander involved and then having sort of, I don't know, John Mills, CEO of ZAR, and, there was quite a real mixture. And we had people from, China, we had sessions from Canadians. They were really broad international groups.
I thought it was a really great mix. I think what I was feeling, I kept sending notes to my Australian friends and my Singapore friends and my Japan friends saying, are you getting on this? Because you should be listening to this. And there, I think that the opportunity to really build a global audience, I mean, I think you've got a runway here. You've sort of gotten the plane off the ground, but I think there's a pretty long flight path here to do it. The other thing that I think somebody said to me that, well, I'm a designer and I didn't really see anything for me. And I get that. I mean, no conference is going to be all things to all people, but I think that what that said to me was that there was a mindset problem, not a curation problem. Right. I think a lot of the people that I talk to get so tightly wound in their little box of, I'm this, and I am only interested in looking at sessions that have to do with very specifically what I do. And I think they miss a lot because of it. So I think we have an education opportunity.
There's that whole issue of designers and print. There's a sort of, as soon as they see the word print, they kind of think, no, it's not me. But actually, some of the sessions, in fact, Roland, you had a couple of sessions that very much focused on things like decor and decoration. Yeah. Quite creative. Roland, do you want to say something about your sessions?
Yeah, I had 2 sessions. One was the interior decoration. The other one was the industrial integration. And the interior decoration session sort of touches on the subject of involving designers because you see a move now, particularly with COVID, that people sit around in their house all day long. And all of a sudden, it appears to them, my curtains are really ugly, or my chairs need a redecoration. And what Pat also said is that a lot of the designers sort of shy away from the whole printing stuff. But if they would know what the industry can give them, And just by listening to people like from Agfa and Roland DG and Erfurt that I had in that panel session, then all of a sudden you see that there's so much opportunity in finding new application forms, short run, high quality stuff that people can just go onto the web, put in their own design, and with a little bit of help of the print companies, people can now make something for them. So local production for local markets is then a thing. And it's a pity that we can't seem to close that gap between production and design. So I think that for next installment, maybe we have to try to bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's valid. I mean, it follows on really from what you said, doesn't it? That sense that we want to open new markets, and sometimes people are a little bit, from other segments are a little bit reticent to join an event that's about print, or but the reality is that print is not just printing on paper, is it? As we know.
It's a marketing opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember if it was you, Pat, or Brendan mentioned that sort of the whole PSP, that whole story of kind of thinking differently about delivering what your services. Actually, it's Brendan, wasn't it? You were talking about that sort of consultative sale.
Yeah,
and that came through in a lot of the sessions, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Brendan, sorry.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's these trends that we pick up, media commentators that we analyze. We're not printers, but we speak to a lot of printers. We deal with the OEMs. We see these trends at a macro level, and we're not kind of saying they're there because we just want to have something to say. It's the market. This is happening in the market today, and it's simply shaped by market forces. And the reality is that if you are the knowledge in a marketing agency about print and what it can do has massively diminished over the last 15, 20 years. So that knowledge is no longer being held in the agency. And that means that when they go to the printer who needs to actually produce this physical product, the reliance now is on the printer to come up with that consultative advice and that selling and that partnership and all of that sort of value added stuff that used to be taken care of by the agency, which allowed the printer just to be a factory. So that link is going. And if you're a brand, you desperately need your printer now to be the voice of creativity and giving you ideas and saying, let's be partners and let's figure out this product so that we can deliver for your objectives, because that isn't coming from the marketing agency anymore.
Yeah, you're right. And when we talked earlier, we were discussing some of those these massive trends, and we had people like Sean Smith on the packaging side. We had Colin McMahon and Tim Green, and we had Mark Hanley. These kind of and Pat, obviously you have vision on trends. Was there anything really interesting that you picked up on that maybe we saw an evolution of trend for 2021? I mean, none of us know what's going to happen, but was there anything in there that you kind of thought was interesting?
There were a lot of things that were interesting. I think for me, the takeaway was that no two of my analyst friends agree on what 2021 is going to look like, or what's really going to win the lottery when it comes to the big story of 2021. Because I listened to Ralph really carefully, Ralph Schlosser really carefully, because I know he's deep into it, and I have huge respect for Sean and Mark, I mean the whole array of them, that they all know their areas really well. But I think where the challenge comes in is trying to figure out how our countries are going to open up to allow the opportunities to get operationalized, and that trying to lay the infrastructure so that you're ready to go the minute you can take off is a challenge of capitalization and current technology capability and an understanding of the market. And two of those things you really can't, you got to wait, and you can't make material changes to your capitalization opportunity immediately. But your understanding as a printer of the market that you can serve, whether it's the one you're serving now or not, is something you should be working on right now. And I took that away from all of their presentations, that as a printer, I would have a responsibility for making sure I understood where I was trying to go and not wait for the market to come to me just because I knew how to print boxes.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed there was quite a lot of conversation. I know the HP session on corrugated, there was quite a lot of conversation around automation and that whole idea that we're moving towards a more automated print environment. Karis, I know this is your specialist subject. So that whole industry 5.0 area is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting, and it's something that I find really interesting. And from my perspective, it's the idea behind it is the kind of the rehumanization of automation. And it's, and I've spoken before about how that's perfect for print. If you look at, the amazing creativity and artistry and design that goes into print, but then also, that there's so much incredible technology and engineering and science behind it. It's that great
it's manufacturing at its best.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I think it's might have been Colin McMahon, in his presentation, he said, it's more industry 4.0. I don't think we're quite at industry 5.0, but from my perspective, it's about just injecting that human creativity back into it. You can have that harmony between humans and machines.
So you would be saying, don't think totally automation, think the value you can get from getting a designer, good, creative people within your organization that adds that little bit of something special.
Yeah, it's what should I automate, not what can I automate.
Yeah,
it's where does it fit in. And I know I hear Pat talk a lot on the workflow about things not being siloed, things flowing nicely, and I think that's you need to have that mix of the right automation, the right technology, and the kind of creative humans and human ingenuity that you have in a print shop.
Absolutely.
For some companies, islands of automation are brilliant. Yeah, sorry, Roland.
Yeah, no problem. Just because you can, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, because the technology has to serve the purpose of being usable, not because the industry tries to push technology onto the market, but that the manufacturers and producers and designers can actually benefit from it rather than taking that as marketing spin from our industry.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's a perfect time to take stock, amidst COVID, reassess, everything from end to end, and think, perhaps you have automation in place that isn't working, perhaps you've got something you can change. Now is the time to make that assessment, I would say.
Yeah. Just as we kind of wrap up, I just wondered whether I could get each of you to name one session. If people were going back in and going to look at the replays, can you name one session you'd say, have a look at that one? It doesn't have to be your session. It can be someone else's session. Where will I start? Pat, let's start with you. Give me one session that you remember that you thought, oh, go and have another look at that.
So I would go to Morton's Mystery of Pricing session.
Nice one, yeah.
And the reason for that is because I don't always agree with everything Morton says. That's sort of the fun part of our relationship. But he brings a turn of mind to the whole area of pricing that I think is worthy of everyone hearing, because so many companies misprice the product that they're pushing out the door because they don't understand how to do pricing. There was nothing in technical school that taught them how to price. Even if you've done your MBA, there really isn't a module in there that says, here's how to price your products. Yeah. So it becomes this thing that gets buried in tradition and a belief, but not necessarily based on data. I thought he brought a great turn of mind to it, and I thought it across all of the segments, whether it was wide format or decor or signage or commercial, whatever. Pricing is what makes you capable of surviving.
Business, yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. For me, that one was Good the shout. One that I'd recommend everyone.
Good shout, Roland.
Yeah, more in general, not specific to one. Yeah, obviously you have to look at the both that I did, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, you're not
But
allowed to claim those ones.
so, but for me, the whole point is that I've seen that there's a lot of people that emphasized on collaboration and on working together in this industry, because people see that it shifts from what we know as commercial print, that it goes into decorative and functional. And out of the bigger trends of local production for local markets and the
Yep.
automation and personalization, the biggest benefit is today, and this is also why I think that um, an initiative like this virtual summit, and with the people joining, so the younger people joining, people that you would normally not see in a real show, they are now sharing across the different areas and across the different industries. And they all have this feeling now that they have to cooperate and be collaborating on making print work for them, which I thought throughout all the days and all the different technical but also commercial presentations, there was sort of this maybe urge or soul of it, that people are looking for not maybe a way out, but more they want to be part of this incredible industry where we can make incredibly nice stuff. And we do that by coming together, by being at the tables at the Remo thing, which to me was brilliant in itself, because people reached out to each other. So in that sense, I think that you've made a wonderful initiative that across the industries, people reached out to each other and looked for new opportunities.
Okay, thank you for that. In fact, what I will do is, just before I come to Brendan and Karis, I'll give you the one that I was thinking of, which actually emulates exactly what you said about collaboration. There was a session that was buried away, but actually it was a session from Muto, who are a wide format digital printer or manufacturer, who'd worked in collaboration with a company called CGS Iris software, and they developed a smaller piece of technology for packaging labels, and really simple sort of label printing. And the idea was that this piece of technology would go to a designer, and a designer who does label design would use it. They'd have it in their office, and they'd be able to do little short run tests of bottle labels, so that you wouldn't have to do mass production. You'd be able to just check it out. And that was great, because it was about designers being able to use digital print technology, and it was also about collaboration. So that was my session. Brendan, let's go to Karis first. Sorry, Brendan.
Yeah, just on what you were saying then, I just think it's the equivalent of, a trade show where you stumble upon like one of the smaller stands, and it's, a real gem, just, I think that's something we miss as well. So it's nice to see the sessions that you might have missed kind of get a shout out.
Yeah, a shout out,
I'm going to cheat and have two.
Okay, go on. Well,
I just want to highlight, again, I'm biased because it was the Young Guns Day, but I think the Falling into Print panel with just, three amazing young women in the industry. And it really, I think it's the thing I would point young people at the start of their career, people considering a career in print, or any adjacent kind of area, take a look at that. These are people that kind of stumbled into it. They fell in love with it. They've made amazing careers, and from different from there's marketing. There was, Michaela had a degree in chemistry and now works for Avery Dennison. So it's, it's a real, there's so many different, avenues into it. And it was just, I thought, really, really inspiring for anybody that was kind of at the early of their career. And I just think, on the point of a designer saying that there wasn't there for them, or someone that might think it's not right for them, I think definitely the funky business forever guy, that was a really engaging talk that whatever industry you're in, that would have been interesting. I really enjoyed that. So,
really good. Last but not least, Brendan.
Yeah, so anyone who's worked with me, as Karis has, will know I like a good metaphor. So for me, And it's not just because Pat is on the call. I genuinely really like Pat's session. And that's because I think one of the biggest problems facing our industry, and this is the metaphor, is that they've got the most amazing fishing rod in the world. It's got sensors on it and detection and flotation devices. It can sense fish at the bottom of the pond, but they're sitting at a pond with a decreasing number of fish. And no matter how amazing that equipment is that they have, it ain't going to catch more fish if they're not in the pond. And Pat's whole session was about trying to break down the mentality of going, stop trying to catch things that aren't there, and just look over there and realize that, 2 meters away, there's another whole pond full of fish in it. And you can take all that equipment and collateral you've got and just go and catch the fish over there. So that for me was really important. I think if more commercial printers, more print organizations just did that tomorrow, then our industry would be a lot wealthier and full of growth place.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Karis. Thank you, Roland. And most certainly, thank you, Pat. Really appreciate your time. And just to give people a little bit of insight, and we'll share this video just so that people can hear what you as the hosts felt was good, and catch up with you all soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.